Hello.
I would just like to state that Zoom has now added a thing where when you remove something from it, like a bot, do you want to ban this person from joining all future meetings?
You mean you can ban the bot?
Yes, at least
That's
theoretically.
fantastic. Okay, because I think the bot is scribing right now.
It should be out. I think I booted it out.
It says that the transcript read AI, at least when I joined, it said it was
Oh, yeah, that was right before I actually gave it the boot.
okay. But it is recording transcript, which is fine.
It's gone.
Okay, very cool. All right, we will wait another minute or two. Today is going to be a light meeting, but it's good to see. Hi, Matt and Marina and Brand and Raf and Dylan. Everybody else. Sorry, as you're coming in. Thanks for joining us. Today we are going to have a light meeting and go through one. Well, I mean, I shouldn't start before we do the disclosure thing too, huh, Bob? I think you're muted.
Yep, give me one sec. I'm pulling up the issue and everything now.
Okay, thank you. Doesn't KubeCon feel like a lifetime ago? I know it does for me.
It never ends.
Never. It never ends.
And the
Are you all
next one
ready
is
for
just around the corner, always.
who's going to KubeCon China? No? Japan?
Japan.
Japan? Hmm. I'm thinking maybe next year, not this year.
Would be doing China and Japan back to back, but wedding the week of China.
You better get them a very nice present because, they're saving you from having to do multiple KubeCons in June.
Yeah.
Okay. The antitrust policy, we default to transparency. We do not collude. We all are working together in the open and appreciate all of you, even though a lot of us work for industry competitors or various end users, very much follow the antitrust policy. Thanks, Bob. Okay. Today we don't have any open votes because we are still in the TOC quiet period, freeze period, which we will better define for everybody, but really trying to make sure everybody does take a break because things just keep moving always. Also, we are not assigning projects yet for the moving levels backlog, although if you do look at it, we have a couple that are in flight still from memory. It's Knative and Kserve are in due diligence. Metal Cube will be coming up for a vote next week as Ricardo finishes that one. And I believe Cube Armor is also being closed out. So then next week you'll see others come up for assignment. Thank you. So as we roll into, we've talked about the project review sub-project. So those of you that are here and are looking to get involved in the new tag restructure, it will be helpful having you participate in some of those governance and technical project reviews and help us refine that process as well. So if you're interested in being involved in that, please go ahead and drop your comments into the Slack and or into the chat here. And then I will keep track of who is interested and we'll pull you in. We're not going to review the TOC workboard today.
Which,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
Karen, which Slack?
Well, I said Slack, but I meant to say chat. So in this chat,
Okay.
if you're here, Ralph, yeah.
I'm interested, yeah. So I'll volunteer for this.
Perfect. Thank you. Awesome. We're not going to review the TOC workboard today. That will be for next time. Okay, moving on to the agenda, unless there's any initial questions right now. Let's quickly talk about the tag reboot timeline and nominations. You know, a lot of us are very interested in this. So we have discussed with the project team on what realistically makes sense. And we're looking for nominations to open on April 29. Is that still accurate, Bob and Rian?
Yes,
Sounds
as
good
far
to
as,
me.
yep.
Okay, perfect. So those of you that are interested in applying for chair, but we're also, the change that I'd like to also, I guess, announce is that we will be doing an initial round of TLs too in the chairs. So for nominations, we'll be initially 3 chairs, 3 TLs, and then we'll open up a new round after that. We're looking at the nominations to the elections. So nominations will open on April 29, and we'll create an issue for this so that you'll see it in the TOC repo, the timeline. Nominations open April 29. They will close on May 16. So May 16, the elections will start, and that means that the TOC members, go ahead, Marina.
I just have a question about the election process. Like, I think you maybe you're about to answer it, but who's allowed to vote in said election? You know, how does that work? All of that.
So for this initial round, the TOC will be voting. We'll look at all the nominations and discuss in a private meeting all the nominations, at least, but we won't be discussing term limits. Is that what you're saying, Bob?
Oh, no, sorry. I was just dropping a comment that, like, one reminder, one big difference from the previous chair and TL role is that there are terms attached with this, and ideally we'll wind up wanting like to have 1 or 2 people have like a 1-year term and then another person have a 2-year term, at least with 3, just so we can start these staggered kind of elections. And it's not necessarily, there's no term limits, so you can still, potentially rerun. Got to think of it more like a checkpoint to, is this something you still want to do?
GitHub issue per nomination. Great question, Ricardo. So we'll open up per tag a GitHub issue for people to nominate, either themselves or be nominated by somebody else. It would probably be easier on the projects team for collecting to have an issue for both chair and for TL. So if you're interested in either, we're really trying to simplify the election process. Believe me, behind the scenes, the projects team really carries a lot. So 1 issue for each. The elections will start. The TOC for the initial seating will be voting and on both the chairs and the TLs for the initial round. For the second round of TLs, so let me finish timeline, is that the elections will close on June 2nd, and then an announcement will be made. And June 2nd, we have the nominations will open for TLs, if I'm still getting this correctly. So nominations will remain open for TLs from the April 29. First round will be seated June 2nd. It'll remain open until July 7th. And then that's when the remaining TLs will be seated. And again, we'll put this in an issue so that it's clear. Are there any other questions here? Because I'm hoping all of you are going to run. Okay. Sounds good. Remember April 29. Okay. If there are any other questions on this timeline, we also are looking at just a reminder that nothing happens quickly if we want to do it right. So we'll make a bigger splash announcement at KubeCon Atlanta and have a booth in the project pavilion for each of the new tags. So keep that in mind as well. Also, we will have another maintainer summit at KubeCon Atlanta. We will at least make an announcement at KubeCon Japan and China around the newly seated TLs and chairs. Okay. Is there anything that Bob, you or Rian would like to add, or Jeef? I don't want to exclude you.
I think the only thing is with this, especially, you know, while we have a bunch of stuff that we've written in guidelines and things of that nature, like we do expect this to potentially change. Like there might be something that does go in place that doesn't quite work out. And so leadership wise, you know, that's going to be like one thing that we're pretty solid on. But as far as the like other aspects of it, don't necessarily feel that what we have is completely written in stone. We want to make sure that going through all this, it works for everyone and makes it easier on everyone.
I'd also like to add that we plan to have the charters stubbed out by April 29, which is also why that date. And then we would love community comment on those charters, and the newly seated chairs and TLs will help refine those. So, okay. Any other questions before we move into a review of the tag reboot workshop?
I had a brief question. I wasn't in London, unfortunately. Is there any, so we have a list of initiatives and community groups, like we've been brainstorming within the tag around how to break up the various ongoing work streams. And is there any other succession planning that we should all be doing as tag co-chairs now? Because I'm sure there's a lot that isn't written down. And is there any best practices or formal, like, could there be a facilitation, I guess is the ask, of meetings, you know, and connect with TOC members to kind of
Absolutely.
the guidance there around like what we could be doing now, both to do preservation of existing stuff, but also to have input into the charter process if that is something that TOC is asking for of the tag co-chairs. I had input obviously into the observability charter, and I'd love to contribute it or help with review or something like that as it's being stubbed out. I guess, yeah.
Thanks, Matt. Those are all great things to bring up. So for the charter, so April 29, once we have it stubbed out, giving some time to stub out, then we'll ask for input. And then also you've been doing an amazing job going through your backlog and pulling out things that might be initiatives. And Bob will paste into the chat. Please may you paste into the chat the big issue template for the initiatives. You can already start adding them in there, and then the TOC will review. And also when the new chairs and TLs are seated, review the initiatives for the new tags. Also, an initiative, remember, initiative doesn't have to be assigned to one tag. It can be cross-cutting, but it will be owned by a tag. Somebody needs to drive it. Marina?
I just have a quick question about the timing. So there won't be a charter for the groups until after there are chairs and TLs. I just have a question about like how people know the scope of what they're agreeing to and that kind of thing. Like how would we make sure that that's defined for folks while also giving them agency into the charter? I imagine that's the problem, but yes, that's my question.
Thank you, Marina. So to clarify is we're starting the nominations on April 29 because that gives time for an initial stub out. And then from there, it would be great to get input for the charter and refinements. Does that help?
Yeah, that makes sense. So it will exist, but then can be like refined.
Yes, yes.
Cool.
That way we can direct more towards what the TOC is asking for. Okay. Matt, did I finish answering your questions?
You did. I had one brief follow-up question. Thank you for your responses. So to be clear, you're looking really for two types of initiatives, right? Ones that are in progress and already funded, so to speak, there are active contributors doing work. And the other is like ideas. We have both, but you are looking for both of those things specifically, right? So we don't have to have like this is a great idea, but there's no one to do it. So it's not worthy of initiative proposal.
It's still worthy. We're very interested. Thank you, Matt.
Okay, thank you.
Hmm.
Also, thanks for the explicit timeline and stuff. That's very helpful.
When you can post the idea for initiatives and things like that still using the template. It just, status wise, they might not be assigned or actively worked on. And then when people do want to pick them up, that's when they would be like, essentially in progress. So you can still use the initiative template to dump ideas.
And speaking of ideas, are there any other questions before we roll into talking through some of the ideas that came out of the workshops, just so we can get an understanding of really what the TOC is looking for, what's working, what might be better through the tab, which is great that Brian's here as well. Okay, then let's move into that. If you have it handy, Bob,
I'm pulling it up.
okay. I'm lost in a sea of tabs again. I just had it up earlier. We have the public drive that we were working from during the workshop. And if you weren't there, if you're planning on going to KubeCon Atlanta, we'll hopefully plan to do something similar then. And we'll be able to go through and see what's working, what's not, and how to iterate on all of this. Okay, so let's start with Marina, do you mind if I kind of pick on your table? Do you want to
Sure.
talk through that one?
Yes, if you don't mind pulling it up, because
Because which table were you at again?
table 5, I think it was.
Everything is awesome table. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, could you walk us through it really fast?
Yeah, we had a bunch of ideas at this table. This first one here, I think the one in blue is the one we chose, if you want to focus on that one, or we can go through all of them. But yeah, this was an idea of kind of creating a standardization for workload identity for applications and services. This one is pretty interesting because I think it cuts across a lot of different tag domains, as well as in other things. And yeah, it's kind of just looking at the fact that there's no standardized identity that works for every different, platform, cloud, piece of infrastructure. And the idea is to kind of help drive adoption, create and drive adoption of a standard. As we discuss here, right, there are some existing standards for this. It's just a matter of kind of maybe helping drive adoption of these, including, of course, SPIFFE and Spire, which are CNCF projects, but like they aren't supported by Kubernetes. So it kind of, which hinders adoption of them. And yeah, we had a lot of discussion around that. So.
And I am realizing that both Brant and Raph were at your table. So if either of you want to jump in too, because this was
Yeah,
a
I
great
can
idea.
I can add something to that. I was actually I was actually the one that drafted this idea. Then everybody contributed to it. But the problem I'm seeing is every cloud provider or cloud platform has its own way of defining a workload identity, and you can argue that bare metal doesn't even have a way to do it. But then they're all not interoperable, right? And arguably, Spiff and Spire came to solve this problem, but we have seen very little adoption of it. So I think so. The objective of the initiative is to encourage the definition of a standard to create interoperable identities between cloud systems or cloud platforms, and maybe try to understand why Spiff and Spire have not been adopted more broadly. Okay. So essentially, how people solve this problem today is that you have to federate the various cloud system, maybe to a central identity provider, and only so basically you trade your proprietary identity for the federated one, and then you can spend it to connect to other services, right? The idea is to simplify the process and just be able to use your workload identity directly. So it's an exploratory work to understand why is this not happening still. Make sense?
Yeah, thank you, Raph. Brant.
Yeah, I think that one was very interesting, very much cross-cutting. I would also selfishly like to look back at the initiative above that, which we didn't select, but I think kind of falls into a vein of work um, that was like cross CNCF and more generic to all projects. And so I think somewhere in there we have one, handling CVE reports and security advisories, and then two, the assessments kind of like evolution, right? And those are, I would say, probably very tag security focused lines of effort initially on the surface, probably implications to a lot like variety of other tags as well. Very much implications to the TOC as like what does this guidance look like, and then how do we respond to events, right? And so I think between the two of those, there could be some really interesting possibilities for exploring, what are the guidelines and thresholds for a project and joining Sandbox or going to incubating or graduated with regards to security. We do some of that today for the security projects, but there's probably an argument to be made in there that there should probably be more broader guidance to all projects in regards to some of the things they do. And that's putting, I'd say, requirements on a project. And so we want to be careful and cognizant of that. I think on the flip side, though, is the other security advisories initiative, which is, hey, I something has happened. Maybe my CI is potentially been compromised. Maybe my project has a vulnerability. What do I do? And again, applies to all projects. And they're going to seek support and how do we respond and what does this guidance and path look like? And we've experienced these before. It's not our first time, but if you go search for guidance, you're going to be searching for a long time because there's nothing official established. And so lots of room for improvement.
And +1 on not every project has a security expert. Love this.
One other or quick comment on that too is with this reboot, it probably won't be live with the reboot itself, but we are going to be very much overhauling the contribute website and make it more tailored towards maintainer resources. So for this kind of we want to basically have a single source of truth for all the maintainer information and things like that. Those would be perfect for there.
Exactly. This is I love these initiatives. Matt, go ahead.
I'll be super brief. We have something analogous as it's an issue we've had for a while with a definition for different levels of observability or different components of it being implemented by the project and having some sort of badging system. It's a proposal for that the CNCF could do so that projects could have like a badge that says we have tracing and profiling and logging, but not that or whatever. So +1. Look forward to seeing this all in the mix. But there's a general framework there that could be extracted for other domains.
Thanks for that, Matt. I was interested to hear your perspective on both initiatives because from an observability standpoint, you would touch on, or your domain area would also touch on both.
Yeah, I mean, I think a general framework for it makes sense because, for the security example, like, are you generating S-bombs or not? Right. Like that, there's just it's observability and analytics is actually the charter's scope, which is quite broad. And there's opportunity for all kinds of contribution there. But I wouldn't expect it's just security and observability. I mean, what would you call cost, or is it like a general badging system that would give us a really compact representation of coverage by the projects against the technical scope that is always changing and growing. So like a dynamic kind of understanding of that could help inform strategy for when we go look at what projects do we want to bring in or not bring in. So that would be my thought. That let's not do it piecemeal, one for security, one for observability, but let's just have a general framework because then the badging system is all auto. Yeah, ongoing costs will be low to run it if done right. So we can make it a self-serve mechanism, but provide compliance and governance as well.
I wonder if there's a possibility of that folding into the best practices badge, but I wonder, Matt, if you would like to capture your ideas into an initiative, or if you already have, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I'll start with what we haven't, but I'll do something in a separate issue. That's great. Thanks.
Thank you. Perfect. Marina, are there any other ones that you'd like to highlight?
I don't think so. No, I think that.
Okay.
Yeah, that covers it.
These are great. These are, yeah, on the right track. So would love to see how these flesh out. Let's see another table where, no, Vasila and Kevin, you were both there. Which tables were you at? Would one of you like to bring up a table?
I was with Katie.
Katie, I picture where you're at in the room, but I don't remember your table name. What was?
Yes, 1 second.
It wasn't Orange is the New Black. It was.
No, that was the winner one.
Yeah. It's not 1B. Was it
This has
corrupted?
Katie's GitHub handle on it.
Yeah, I don't see the name here on the file name. Yeah.
Table 3.
Huh. Okay. Let's move. Was it corrupted Altisor? It might be the cross-project dependence.
Yeah, this one, the corrupted Altisor.
Perfect. Okay. Casila, would you like to quickly talk about this one?
Yes, so we had different discussions at the table. Many of them were really nice, but then, yeah, so from some of the team members, one thing which was like one problem which they were more mentioning about is like the cross collaboration between the projects, one thing. And then I think finally the discussion that happened is, and the one we selected is more about how we can collaborate more within the runtime, container runtime, and the runtime space. Yeah, so there were many people who were involved in those projects, and then they felt like there should be more collaboration between the kubelet and containerd and similar areas. There are like dependencies on the APIs, which usually happens, and then it's very difficult to go back and forth in those areas, and it delays many things. That's what the concern was. So if there is a better way, they are like working together, and these things are being communicated earlier in a better way. That's what we wanted to achieve. And that's what the concerns many people raised there.
We've been talking to SIG API machinery about maybe surfacing the API reviews, kind of how we move that into a more community-wide. And I wonder if best practices and lifecycle and the other things that you're talking about for containerd and cryo and kubelet, whether we can fold those discussions together, or what initiative can we pull out of this? So what does everybody think? Kind of, we do need, more standardization across APIs, but open to the floor. Raf, I feel like with your background, you might have some insights here as well.
I'm not sure on this one.
Okay, fair. This might be one that we discuss more with API machinery and come back and see what initiative can be pulled out of here. But I think that there's the beginnings of a great initiative here as soon as we refine it more. Thank you, Fasila. I think that must have been a great discussion at your table.
Welcome.
Jiffy, would you like to talk about your table, since your table won the...
Yeah. So really quick, our table, and if it wasn't obvious, this has been like my life. Trying to improve kind of the CI story for a bunch of our projects. By doing that, we also kind of improve resource utilization, reducing flakes. That kind of took us down the rabbit hole of how does Kubernetes reduce flakes? They have test grid. Test grid is a fantastic utility, but it's really only used for Kubernetes. There's some other projects that kind of lease some test grid space, but that really kind of was the whole starting idea for our table. How can we reduce flakes, improve CI efficiency, and give a better insight into project utilization of resources? Because these are all intrinsically linked. If you just say one, it doesn't really make sense. You kind of have to look at the whole picture and then try and address the whole picture in a holistic view. Hopefully that makes sense.
One other quick comment on this in flakes. If you've worked in Kubernetes, you know the flake rate is pretty high, and how much of a time sink it can be. Just helping people address these flakes and chasing them down and removing them can drastically speed up developer velocity. There is a good...
No. Finish your thought. Mine's different. I thought you were done.
Oh, okay. When it comes to just general, when a business is looking at success metrics and things like that, ignoring the potential cost with GitHub runners, just the amount of time it takes with this stuff can drastically be sped up.
And one of the things that I have run into kind of trying to improve our resource utilization is like I actually dive into some projects, CI and tests, and try and figure out how can we improve their usage? Do they actually need the resources that they requested? And more than one project will just have tests that fail, and it seems like one or two dedicated people that click retry until it's green. And cool, now it's green, so ship it. Like, that ain't good from like a health of the project perspective, not, governance health, but like, yeah, it's not a real test. That's called a coin flip. And on top of that, like, yeah, the test is clearly not great, so the, project itself might not be as stable. But also, when that test is like a half an hour test and you've retried it 5 times, you've burned 150 minutes of compute just to get the illusion that the green test is good. So that was kind of the whole story behind it. It's cost optimization, it is resource utilization, but it's also improving the health and stability of our projects. So that was it.
Raf, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this project attracted my attention even at the maintainer meeting that we had. I'm curious. There is something I don't know about the CNCF and how we do things. Do we, for the CNCF projects, do we give them an environment to test? Like, do we pay for the resources that they use
For
test?
projects?
Yeah, for the projects.
The projects can request resources from the CNCF, and we work with cloud providers, or we'll kind of give the project an in with the cloud provider to request their own resources. Aside from that, you get the free stuff from GitHub. Some projects, when they are they apply and then get accepted and donated, however you want to phrase it. They might already have some CI resources coming with them, and then we help manage that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I was asking because I think one of the consequences of adopting a framework like this would be that they would be testing more continuously, right? Which means increasing the cost of the test. And the project that I saw in the storage tag where I've operated, they were not always set up for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, if we can give them resources, then I think this is a great idea in my opinion.
I'll let you go in a sec, Karina. We try to let projects know they can request resources from us, but some projects, like the larger that we get, the more difficult it is to try and convey all of the resources that projects can request from us. Go ahead, Karina.
Really, what I was going to say is that this matters for Brian and the tab and Chad, because if projects aren't optimizing before they're adopted by the end users and they're churning through resources, they're less likely to stay adopted and move into production. So it's really important also to consider it. Also in the environmental sustainability tag right now, there's the energy reviews working group. I think I'm saying that name wrong, but that could be a good starting point to look at or see if that can move into what this could become. What are they doing there for resource optimization and cost optimization? And could that help here? I believe Fasila's next and then Matt. Fasila?
Hi, yes, Karen, not about this, but I missed one point in the when I was talking about the previous table. Is it okay to tell that now?
If it's, let's save it if it's not this topic, and then we'll go back to yours. And then,
Sure. Okay.
thank you. Matt?
I was going to say briefly, if this becomes an actual working initiative, I think it's blog worthy, right? Because anyone in a small startup setting or even in a large corporate setting, but like certainly in the small to medium size, you're always as an engineer that wants to try something having to also justify the cost of it at the same time. You often don't have a year anymore to build a product to show the value for the cost. It's at that smaller scale. So if we talk about how we do it so that others can do it too, I think it it's a differentiator, in terms of being able to, not a differentiator, it makes it easier for people to actually adopt and prototype in these smaller organizational settings where cost control and cost understanding is much more an issue.
Yeah, I 100%
So there's an
agree.
opportunity there.
When, like, again, this has kind of been my main focus for a while, and I've thought of a bunch of different approaches. I could see, similar to how we do security audits, we could do a CI audit. And projects can actually have someone with fresh eyes come in and really just, question, certain design decisions. Also, if, someone is staring at the same code base for years, they're obviously not gonna, they're locked into that line of thinking, right? So that's one approach. But the other approach is from the other end, which is we need to give projects the tools to be able to see, like, front and center if things are flaky, if their tests are failing. Like that, like I don't think we do one or the other. I think we have to approach this from both ends. Whether the audits are, like third party, or whether they are from the community, just not from the project itself, like I have no strong feelings one way or another.
Okay, let's move on to Facilas, but first, who would like to work with Jufi and Mario to help flesh out this initiative? Because it sounds like it's also one that is really needed. Don't have to volunteer now. Okay, just put it in the chat. Otherwise, we'll put it in.
You're talking about from the TOC, right?
Oh, no, talking from the community for the
Oh.
initiatives that are being.
Yeah, I'll help.
Okay, awesome, Matt. Thank you. Okay, Facila, back to you.
Yes, when I talked about the cross collaboration part, there is one point which I missed to mention, because our table had members from China and Japan, and then they had, when we talked about the cross collaboration, they raised this concern about not being able to attend the meetings because of the time zone issue as well as the language issue. So time zone, yeah, we cannot do much about it. We can run bi-weekly meetings to match the time zones, but the language part from the team, there was a suggestion or ask, like whether there is something the CNCF team can do to have some subtitles added in the specific language. Is there a way to do that in Zoom so that the recording they can watch later with their own language there? So I just thought I'll just mention that here so that Bob or others can think about it. They were mentioning like there are options, but I do not know how easy it is with Zoom, but maybe just a thought process.
That I believe the community groups are looking into that too. So Bob and Jiffy, if somebody wants to take a follow-up on that, because that's fantastic.
I'll be honest, I was typing a Slack DM and I missed that. Sorry.
Translation subtitles for non-English speaking, especially for APAC.
I'm not sure about live translation, at least within Zoom, but it is definitely something we can look at. And this is something I've actually talked with a couple other people about, at least with potentially using some of the more like AI augmented localization stuff for docs. and other things of that nature.
Thank you.
Now is probably a good time to bring up that a smaller version of Maintainer Summit is going to be at KubeCon China. Is it also going to be at KubeCon Japan, Bob?
We intend to have at least something at each KubeCon.
Okay. And Kevin, do you want to bring up anything about the different time zones or what's going on at KubeCon China at least?
Yeah, I think for time zone, it's easier because we used to have a few community meetings that basically switch bi-weekly, one for like US friendly, one for APAC friendly. And for the language, I think if it's asynchronous, it will be easier because we can use like the AI help the translation. Yeah, I think that's a good starting point.
Karuna, there was one more point when the cross collaboration was discussed. Katie already informed the members that we are already thinking about grouping together the working groups. For example, sustainability and observability are going to be together so that they are going to work in collaboration more. So yeah, such things are already in plan and it's already being done. So she already talked about it during our conversation, which is what many of those people were looking for as well.
Yeah, we're looking for as much cross collaboration as we can, and it's fantastic that both of those previous tags were looking at APAC friendly time zones. Okay, and Rian, that's probably something to add to the action items is to make sure that there's a combined time and what that looks like for some of the tags that are having an APAC meeting in LFX. Okay. Before we move on to the next one, we have 12 minutes. Okay. Is there another table that anybody here would like to bring up? Otherwise, we will. Oh, did you raise your hand, Kevin? Go ahead.
Yes, I can briefly talk about the table 2.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, table 2. Yeah, so the idea we discussed is about the basically a conformance program for the CNCF project. So the background was that some of the project maintainers met the issue that actually comes from some of the distributed version from a provider or platform, and they end up spending a lot of time to identify whether it's part of their conformant feature or it's from some of the changed version issue. So the idea was that we can come up with basically we want to use a program to help all the other CNCF projects to set up their own conformance program, including the conformance test and the conformance reports. We know that today there are a few projects already have the conformance, but it seems they were done, case by case and actually need a lot of resources. So this initiative was trying to simplify and provide some documents and also maybe a set of tools to help making it easier for projects to set up their conformance.
I mean, I think this is a fantastic idea. I wonder for Bob and Brian whether this makes sense as part of the proposed graduated plus or for graduated projects that are kind of re-upping.
I think there's, well, multiple things here. One, at least with the developing some of the best practices and like, documentation around the tooling and how to essentially have an effective conformance program, I think that could be one thing. And then the rest of it, that is where I think there could definitely be, help with information from the tab on, what are the things users check for, or like, what are the most standard cases. Actually, that if there is regular cases, that might be something to build in the docs as well. But like, I do think there's collaboration opportunities.
This is a fantastic one. Thanks for bringing it up, Kevin. Um, what other things did you talk about at your table? Because you had a great table, the cross plane or the control plane.
The control plane, yeah. Yeah, the other one was talked about was I think we removed it. So we also discussed a bit about the something like Cube Builder to help projects easier develop their um, it's like simplify their framework setup, because there are a lot of projects have kind of common layer building like their own operators, and also custom resources. Yeah. Sorry, I don't remember much details about that.
That's okay. That whole day was a whirlwind. I like how it's going to what are your common build tasks, and I would say that could feed also into other common tasks around release, build, kind of best practices. Sounds like there could be a good initiative that comes out of that, because we did have the table that was talking about releases. Bob, do you remember which table that was?
I do not, but we are also just at 7 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. That's another one. But Kevin, that sounds like it could also be a good one, or for community members that are watching this video later. That would be a good one to flesh out for an initiative as well. Okay, in 6 minutes, if anybody has any questions or has any other topics that they would like to close out on.
Karina, I have a question. So did we cover how we are going to roll over the groups into sub-projects, or how are we going to create these sub-projects, or
We are going through that. You see Rion doing a lot of stuff in the background. And so we will send out, as I mentioned earlier, we'll send out more guidance around this and talk to the tags as they need.
okay.
So
Okay.
this for the project review sub-project, that we'll be looking to you and Kevin to help with rolling that out. So with 6 minutes, we don't have enough time to really dive
Okay.
into that. So we'll do that separately.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because we'll be doing that. We did talk about the projects that are coming up in up for due diligence. So those will be the first ones that we'll be looking at for, at least for the technical reviews and the governance reviews. Some of the governance reviews are already being assigned. So we'll look to you and Kevin to make sure that those are making progress. Progress is being made.
That's great. Thanks.
And we were going to have the project board more ready before now, but again, we're looking at the April 29 timeline to help give us a little bit more leeway to make sure that we're not overloading everybody. So, okay, any other questions? Okay, because we don't have to take up the last 4 minutes. Perfect. Okay, everyone. Please feel free to reach out in the TOC Slack channel, watch there for more updates, as well as the private TOC mailing list. And we will be putting out more information on the blog, but TOC Slack channel right now, or the public, sorry. Yes, thank you, Bob. And yes, Kevin Clues, not Kevin Wing. Sorry, Kevin. All right. This is last week of freeze. Next week, we'll start assigning more due diligence and get moving on the project process. And thanks for sticking with us, all of you tag leads and members. We very much appreciate you. And we need you going, forward to Atlanta. At least that's our next huge milestone. So, all right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Later.
Bye.